Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for participating in today's event. I'm Steve with BDI. We are the sponsor of this program. So let's just start again with Judy. If you could just please introduce yourself, your role, and what was it about this event that allowed you or made you want to participate besides me begging you?
Hi, I'm Judy Wiesa. I'm a director of corporate and field marketing for Three Pillar Global. We produce software that generates a revenue for customer-facing products. And, virtual events, it's been a crazy year. It's been a ton of learning. And I think that I'm still learning, even though I've been in events pretty much my entire career. This year has created a lot of opportunity, and I'm excited to learn from others.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thomas.
Hi, everyone. So I'm the head of marketing at Hoppier, and I love what we do because it's about food and it's about drinks, it's about gifts. So we basically make it super easy for virtual event managers to send food, drinks, and gifts, as I said, to online attendees through virtual credit cards. So if you have attendees all across the world and that want all kinds of food options, then it's quite complicated if you don't have a platform like ours. What we do is we make it super easy to issue those cards and then allocate funds to those cards, and then all the attendees will have access to those virtual credit cards to then buy food, drinks, and gifts anywhere, any place in the world that accepts credit card payments. So that's an easy way to add those physical items in a virtual setup. And yeah, excited to be here. I'm still learning all the time as well. I would love to meet you all, and I would love to understand your challenges in having and running those virtual events.
Thank you, Thomas. Steve.
Hi, everyone. Steve Voith. I am the Senior Manager of Growth Marketing at Power Reviews. Power Reviews is an e-commerce ratings and reviews platform. So we work with any and all e-commerce provider stores that ship in sizes. And in my role, I'm kind of in a hybrid of demand gen and field marketing. I've been on the brand side, I've been on the client side. I've sponsored a lot of events and been the person running the booth, but then also just recently had the responsibility of putting on an entirely virtual event. So I am excited to share my ideas with you guys, but mostly hear from the group and the panel on what's working well for them.
Thank you, Steve. Greg.
Hi, everybody. Gregg Heard here. I oversee global brand marketing at Sage. And we basically are the largest UK software company. And but we operate globally, but we basically provide cloud-based software for financial services, HR, payroll across the small and medium business. And I guess for me, I guess it's just about how much innovation I think we've had to go through in the past year to figure out how to navigate brand behavior, brand engagement. And it's just almost remarkable how much change has happened and how much we've had to adapt. And I think there's some interesting lessons just to be learned about, how you kind of show up as a trusted source and authority for a lot of things that our customers are trying to navigate. I think is an interesting topic to cover.
Thank you, Greg, and welcome. Murph.
Hey, everybody. Murph Krajewski. I'm the CMO at Sharpen, based out of Indianapolis, though currently I'm at my in-laws' house in North Carolina. Sharpen is a contact center communications platform. We focus really heavily on the agent experience. And so when March hit last year and everybody had to pivot and send all of their agents home, we kind of lived the virtual event thing in a long, drawn out way, and learned some good stuff along the way. And I'm starting to get some questions in my brain about the whole Zoom fatigue thing and virtual events. As far as those events go, I'm typically a consumer of them. The events that we do in-house are more like webinars, conversations like this. I've never run a large scale like virtual event that would solicit other sponsors. So I just think there's a lot of interesting dynamics. And I agree with, I think it was Suzanne in our room who said that 2021 was going to be a really interesting year for how all of this evolves. So I've been working with BDI for a while now. And when Stephanie asks me if I can participate, the answer is always yes. So there's no question.
Good. Well, we'll keep asking, Murph.
Right.
If your answer is always yes. Thanks, everyone, for the introductions. So let's get right into it. So what are your biggest challenges? What's your number one challenge to making virtual events successful? We'll kind of just go around. We'll start with Judy.
Definitely Zoom fatigue. People, we've been doing this for a year. People are over the Zoom meetings and the one direction communication.
It's how to get people to be engaged, at every step of that event journey. Yeah, and I'm sensing this more and more. Like we run two webinars every month, more or less, and we've been doing this for the last 6 months. Just like in terms of the amount of people who sign up and the amount of people who show up, it's decreasing over time. And also that drop-off rate, when people log in until they actually finish the event is also going up. So yeah, virtual event engagement is really what's the most challenging to me, at least, and to our company so far, and to our clients as well.
The relationship between engagement and fatigue, I think, is an interesting one, which we'll get into, right? Steve.
So I'm not going to argue that Zoom fatigue isn't real, because it absolutely is. I think what I've seen in the last year is that people are still willing to jump on a Zoom just like this if the event story and content is still compelling. So that's just the big thing that is still the challenge to me. It's, the tech is going to be the tech, and there's some really cool solutions I'm looking at. I'd love to share what I'm looking at, but I feel like the big challenge I'm having right now is making sure I have a steady stream of contributors, because I sort of agree with the panel that the traditional webinar where I'm going to get up and talk about my solution, I'm going to have one of my product owners come on and give a demo, is just like gone. That has no space anymore, just because people want to hear from, just like this event, other practitioners and who has the same challenges as me, and even other thought leaders from the industry, that they would take the time and say, this is more than just a Zoom meeting. It's fine that it's in a Zoom space, right? I don't think the problem is Zoom. I think the problem is that it's been overused to produce a lot of stale content. So that's a big challenge I'm seeing or coming up against, is just how do I make sure I'm getting outsiders involved and I'm doing something unique that's compelling. That's not easy to do at scale. And I think even beyond that, then cutting through the noise of, I do have a good story. I've got an amazing customer coming on to talk about what they're doing. Yes, they might talk about our solution a little bit, but how do I make sure that it gets heard? And I think two things that I'm seeing preliminary success with is making sure that those panelists, those speakers I have come on are promoting my event, so that it's not just me shouting to the ether of come and hear from us. It's look at these amazing people who are going to come on and talk and share their experience. Oh, another good thing is we've been actually having good success with sharing the news of our events through publication. So every one of us have industry publications that control and promote their own things. So where you can establish and harness those relationships. I'm seeing good success in making sure that I'm not the only one talking about my event.
One of the things I've been kind of reflecting on is how much we've had to change the level of engagement. And, because we operate in that financial software, and, because so many businesses have just been completely, impacted by all of this stuff, the way we were engaging really switched to kind of webinars and all of that, of course, but it was more about us showing up as a kind of a trusted authority. And it was more about bringing expertise, subject matter expertise, and really real practical problem solving, and how to navigate tax returns and VAT and things like that. So it was less about kind of product marketing and things like that to more real engagement and support. And that has in some ways become a business catalyst for us, because then that has led to opportunity for new customer acquisition and things like that, but mostly from the idea of showing up as kind of a trusted advisor, trusted counsel there for you type of aspect that really has helped us, helped with engagement.
Yeah, I think for us, one of the biggest challenges has been making sure that we're engaging the right people for the event. If it's a customer-facing event, how do you make sure that you get enough of your customers in with enough valuable content for them? If it's a prospect-facing event, how do you make sure you're finding the prospects that are actually the most engaged and get them to the event? And then you know, there's honestly like, can we consider this a safe space? Can I be transparent?
Yes.
This is my 6th web meeting this morning, right? Show of hands, who has had at least 5 other video meetings today? Sometimes plastering on a smile is a pain, right? And so when you're hosting that event, it's hard to put on a happy face when you've already had a half a dozen other video meetings, some of which you get yelled at during. So I just think it's tough. And that's
So
what
that speaks right into the Zoom fatigue thing, right?
Well,
I mean,
so that's what
it is.
I'm wondering. Like, are virtual events getting all of the brunt of Zoom fatigue when really it's just we're sick to death of being stuck in front of a webcam all the time? Because with regular events, there's at least the boondoggle aspect where you can go to Vegas and change your pace a little bit. But here, like this event is the exact same as the one I just had with my digital marketing team, none of whom I've ever seen face to face. I've hired them all in the pandemic, right? So it's just that bizarre change of reality that we've had to deal with. And there's nothing we can do about it until things change. So I think there's that mix of, and Alex, I'm with you, that toxic positivity. Like, how do you make the best of I don't even know, is this a PG-13 webinar? A shit situation? Like, how do you deal with that? Sorry if you have kids in the room at your house, I apologize. Anyways, that's where I'm at. I think there's a level of frustration, but in the middle of that, there's also a level of opportunity. Because I'm a small company and the internet is kind of the great democratizer. And so we've actually seen results from events that we've sponsored like quadruple, because we don't have a 10 by 20 booth next to an 80 by 70 booth, you know, just trying to wave our hands and get attention. So there's good opportunity there as well.
Yeah. You know, from our perspective, you know, we do about 150 events. They used to all be face-to-face. Now that they've all been virtual, there's been major opportunity with virtual. Before I get into summarizing a lot of the challenges we have and get into how we're overcoming them, let's just talk about a huge opportunity, which is no geographic boundaries. None at all. So if you're into account-based marketing, if you have a target list, one of the biggest challenges used to be with face-to-face, right? You know, we're going to do an event in Phoenix. Well, how many people from your ABM list are in Phoenix that you really could have success with getting there and showing up versus, you know, doing a regional event, even if you're focused on a region like the Southwest or so on. So not having geographic boundaries is definitely a big advantage. But
can I add one thought to that?
Yeah.
Gregg had mentioned that they're operating kind of in the small to medium business space. Small to medium businesses can't always afford to send people to physical trade shows, right? They have a small travel budget. So a lot of Gregg's audience is going to be able to take more advantage of a virtual than a physical event.
Absolutely. And I also wanted to dig in a little deeper with really what I hear is the most common challenge, which is the Zoom fatigue thing, which means a lot of things to different people. And thank you, Murph, for expanding on that and asking some good questions about what that really means.
Sorry, I cussed.
That's okay. We'll forgive you. You get a pass. Number one, is it Zoom fatigue or is it pandemic fatigue? You know, what's going on here? Because obviously we are month 12, really. It happened in March, right? And we're at March 4th. So we're just about a year into this. And people are really, you know, tired of sort of the same old routine, which includes, you know, communicating through webcam, communicating through Zoom and similar platforms. But there's also a bigger element to it in terms of not being able to have that human connection in our personal lives, not being able to hug, you know, our parents, or, you know, visit family in other states because of the travel, not being able to work side by side in offices with our coworkers, which a lot of times we enjoy doing, although many of us are enjoying the benefits of working from home too at the same time. So there's a lot of factors that go into this Zoom fatigue that we need to be, I think, cognizant of. It's not only about the webcam, but someone brought it up before, and I really want to start talking about solutions now. we believe at BDI that the number one solution for Zoom fatigue is having, number one, a very engaging, interactive experience, not being the typical webinar, which is one directional when it comes to content, where it's just people speaking at you, doing presentations, talking about them, their products, and so on. What we need and what we desire as human beings is an interactive connection where everyone can be heard, where people can learn from each other, where it's peer-to-peer experience. And we also can take advantage of technology and all the technologies that allow us to do that, whether it's surveys or chats or other creative, virtual event platforms beyond Zoom that allow people to connect with each other. So having interactivity is really important, not only from a human experience perspective, but also from a business perspective, because many of the events that we do, we help our clients connect with their target audience through events so that they can hopefully turn them into new customers. So how do you do that traditionally? Well, you connect salespeople to target accounts. So not only do you need that engagement as human beings, but you also need it from a business perspective, because salespeople are sick of webinars where they don't have an opportunity, even if you are able to recruit your target audience to a webinar, even if they show up and they participate. What space are you creating? What type of format are you creating to allow your sales reps to actually connect with people like they used to at a table in a fine restaurant or private room where 8 people were sitting around a table, breaking bread, enjoying a meal, chatting, getting to know each other? The sales team needs that in order to connect and to get value. And one of our biggest challenges as marketers is what? Bridging the gap between sales and marketing. So interactivity, engagement is good on so many levels. So I just wanted to share some of my own perspectives there. I wanted to open it up to the panel for anyone who wanted to chime in on the whole fatigue thing.
I liked what you just hit on with your sales teams, not having the restaurant table in their arsenal of weaponry right now. Like, I've seen some of my sales guys get kind of knocked off their game this year. And that's been tricky to support. We tend to think marketing's job is to feed sales in terms of demand gen. And so it's been hard to watch them stumble a little bit and figure out how to support that.
To that end, Murph, I mean, one of the things that I've seen success, they're not super turnkey and they require some investment, but there are a lot of cool solutions that are coming into the marketplace on how you can still do that restaurant experience, but you just have to do it virtually and you have to do it very curated. But we've seen some good success with, a lot of things we used to do at my last company were executive roundtables, gathering CIOs together, in legal tech, to hear from each other. So my company facilitated it and we would do them in person, but now we pivoted to my last time we pivoted to doing them virtually, where we still did something very exclusive. It was a VIP list. And to Steve's earlier point, we could invite CIOs now just from across the country. But we still did some really cool things. There's a lot of companies that are doing virtual wine tastings, coffee tastings, whiskey tastings. It doesn't have to be alcoholic, but it's all about just still creating that experience. And yes, it requires a little bit more upfront coordination, but it's perfect for those reps who crave, I need to have that chance to hear and get in front of my folks. But it's just, and again, it helps also combat the Zoom fatigue, right? Of, I'm not just going to listen, I'm going to talk with people. It's going to be a meaningful Zoom conversation, so I'm willing to go.
To Steve's point, if anyone has really good experience, they want to refer someone who provided a great wine tasting experience or any sort of interactive vendor or technology vendor, please share it in the chat, because one of the things we want to do is walk away from this conversation with some tangible referrals and references and action items so that we can incorporate. So please feel free to share anyone who has done a good job for you and has really earned your business. Thank you.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention is getting people to be really active is to me an amplifier of ROI. And what I mean by that is you need to understand how to get people to be engaged at every step of that event journey. So it's really key to understand, okay, I'm going to run this type of event, and I'm going to talk about how to choose your event type as well. But let's say you run in an online lunch and learn. Well, you need to define, okay, what is my event goal, which is linked to your business goal. So how many people do I want to attend that specific event? And so you need to you need to understand, sorry, that the amount of people who will register will be very different from the people who will attend. So in terms of engagement strategy, you need to understand what can I do in order to increase the attendance rate. And for that, having a great event topic that is hot right now for your leads or client is really key. So that's the first thing that I would start with is, okay, what's really trending right now? What are the biggest challenges of my target audience? So, go to online communities, talk to your clients, talk to sales, understand what's really hot right now, so that you can have a really great topic that's really top of mind for your audience. And then you have so many things that you can think of to make sure that people are active during your event as well, like having lunch and drinks, or this having quizzes, live polls. You can make it super fun and interactive. But I think most people, the main reason why they want to attend a live event and actually tune in when the event is actually taking place is to meet peers. Because if you subscribe to the event, most of the content you will have access to it after it happens. So I think to make it super engaging, you need to really crack the how do people meet online thing. And then you can try to understand, okay, but how do people meet offline? So if you have a big room with 100 people, you're not going to create a huge group of of people that just talk. You need to understand that, like, very, very naturally, people would create breakout rooms, and so you can replicate that online. And I've seen events where it's randomly done, which is fine. Like we had at this event, which is perfectly fine. It can be fun, but if there are specific topics in mind, well, you can also create breakout rooms based on these topics. So you can think about creating these small groups, either randomly or by what's top of mind, what's most challenging for these people. So I think cracking that how do people meet online thing is the biggest thing to think about when it comes to event engagement during the event.
Thank you, Thomas. In addition to the content too, which you addressed at the beginning of your remarks, making sure that you have the right topics that are focused on the needs of your audience, not necessarily the needs of your company. What we see a lot of times when it comes to content is that the natural reaction for a lot of B2B companies is to go at it almost from a product marketing perspective, which doesn't make sense because it's all about you. It's all about me. Look at me, look at my product. Here's my demo. This is why we're great. Look at these features, benefits. This is how we're going to help you. It should be flipped, the other side, right? It should be about, especially when it comes to new top of the funnel people who are not yet customers, people who are not yet even in your pipeline. It should be about them. What do they want to learn about? What's their attendee experience? How are you driving value to them? If you focus on their needs and you deliver that, then they're going to warm up for whatever comes next with your relationship with them. So that's something that we obviously try and do with all of our clients, is really put ourselves in the shoes of their audience and what's important to them and what they're going to get out of it, which is exactly what you're saying, Thomas. Anyone else have any thoughts, comments about some of the challenges, some of the solutions that you're doing in your own organization?
I do have some comments there. I think that we cannot forget the importance of the feeling of community. We mentioned that social interaction, everyone wants that personal touch, and we don't have it now because we're all virtual. So in creating opportunities for people to meet, and now of course we don't have the challenges of distance, we can meet people from everywhere now. There's no limitations there. If you attract customers to a virtual roundtable, it's very curated. You have very specific content that hits on their pain points that you can then bring them together to discuss and troubleshoot, kind of like what we're doing now. Then that brings this whole group as a networking experience. And we at 3Pillar actually continue those events on with the same group. And it creates this feeling of community, and you make time in your day because you want to keep seeing these people. You want to know how they're progressing. You want to know how they're beating the challenges that they're facing. So I think the power of community is really important.
Just to build on what Judy was saying, I think that's really right. And I think that ability to tap into kind of unique expertise or bringing unique points of view and expertise together, because like a lot of companies, you might have a person who's an expert, one or two experts on a particular topic, and that person, in the past couldn't be everywhere to be in every meeting. But in this, it's almost like a leveling of being able to access to these people with that level of expertise. We had tremendous, at the beginning of the outbreak, whether you're talking about, different regions around the world, but we were just bringing together, financial experts, tax experts, government responsibilities into these forums, and people just, it was critical. People were tapping into that because they had to for their looking at their livelihood and their business continuity and viability going forward, just looking for that information. So bringing communities together and having people have the ability to tap into unique perspectives and expertise was really important.
I think that was very well said, Greg. And not only, I would wholeheartedly recommend to the group, like for sure, seek out the experts in your industry and that your buyers want to hear from, because they'll come for that. There's no replacement for their expertise. One thing that we did at my last company that I was a little unsure of how it was going to work, because this is in the legal space, so we're marketing to lawyers and CIOs, but I think this would apply to really all audiences. We went outside of the normal like legal tech professionals that you would see at an event and said, what if we got our own keynote speaker that was almost a little bit of a celebrity, well known or not, and this does require a little bit of budget, but you'd be shocked at how accessible now, like keynote speakers, whether they come from the industry or we actually went with someone, her name was Molly Bloom. She's a former skier, high stakes poker player runner. There's a great movie about her, and bringing that to the legal sector, we saw that as the biggest draw for our event. It was by far the biggest attended session, which sort of surprised us, but is now part of my recipe of how do I bring together those perspectives that they want and expect, but also tell a few cool stories that maybe they didn't expect to hear at the event.
That's great, Steve. What I was going to say about community is that one thing that you guys, some of you have joined, so thank you, is we actually experimented with something new in building our own community here called the ABM Events Collective, which we're using LinkedIn. So a LinkedIn group. It's a great way to augment and continue the conversation between a community that you're trying to build at a live event like this. And the question is, well, what happens afterward, right? It's like everyone sort of goes home and then we lose that sense of community, become a little bit disconnected. So we're experimenting with this ABM Collective. So for those of you who have joined, thank you. And for those of you who haven't, we invite you to. And again, the objective there is to build a community for people to learn from each other and to do it in a way so that it's not only dependent upon a single event, that it's a community that could thrive and grow and continue. And I think LinkedIn isn't the only platform to do it on. There's a lot of community platforms and there's a lot of ways to build community, but that's just one way that we're trying.
That's actually very interesting because I want to build our own community as well. But the problem is I don't know exactly which channels which channel make the most sense. Here it's a LinkedIn group, which I don't know actually if it's the right channel to actually build a community on. I've seen people, creating Facebook groups, Slack channels. So I don't have, and here's like me asking, here's like, what do you think actually is the best channel to create your own company community? Because I'm actually in the process of starting to know that. And it's really interesting when you run all these online events because you want to make sure that, you are top of mind for all the people attending your event, and you want to make sure it doesn't kind of die off, right? You want to understand first of all who were the most engaged attendees at your online events, so that based on the fact that they were super engaged, you can send that information to the sales team to say, hey, the fact that they were engaged might be a good sign that they're interested in what we have to offer. For the rest of the attendees, having this sort of online community is super important because you want to make sure that you reach out to them quite frequently so that when you run a new event, that you don't have to kind of convince them again. Like, you have to be constantly top of mind for your own company's audience, so that when you launch new events or any kind of campaigns, then it's much easier to actually get them to sign up. So it's a very open question. Like, what do you think the best process is, or what is the best channel to create your own company's community?